How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It would be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that mostly the reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Whatever the reason, the heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in her town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit there down to feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast. Then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, tall and small, will stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'll stand hand in hand, and those Whos will start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more Grinch thought of Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming, but how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what I'll do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. He made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick. With the coat and this hat, I'll look like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? No! The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up! And the sleigh started towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. This stuff is number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed the roof, empty bags in his fists. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, only a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk and smiled most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorns, and plums. He stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk in the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I'll stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove. Then he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast. And he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by his tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" Old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on the tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And his fibful, the child, then he patted her head and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou, who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney, he stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing at the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, their tags, their tinsels, their trimmings, their trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet. He rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh! He was grinishly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo." "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was very merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, were singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came somehow. Rather, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food and the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.